So genetics 3, then we're going to finish with our last two patterns of inheritance. And the first one there is color vision. Color vision, being colorblind is recessive. It's not just that it's recessive, it is sex linked. And that means that it is the gene for color vision is found on the X chromosome and only on the X chromosome. So for a male, they don't receive that X chromosome twice. They only get one from their mother. They get the Y from their father. And because of that, instead of having the traditional two alleles, like we see here with a female, a male is going to have just one. Now, rather than just leaving one, I like to put a Y in there so that I can remember, oh, that's why I'm only doing one, is because this is a male. So if we were to look at working out these problems, right, or working out this chart here, Donald is red-green colorblind. That means that he has a recessive allele on his X chromosome and a Y chromosome. Irma has normal color vision. So we know she has at least one copy of the normal color vision allele. We don't know what her second one is. Jack has normal color vision. That means on his one X chromosome he got from Irma, he has normal color vision. Donald, on the other hand, he's red-green colorblind, but what does he give to Jack? He can only give Jack the Y chromosome. And so because of that, we don't even really have to be, Jack doesn't have to be worried about his dad being colorblind. He only needs to worry about what Irma could give him, because being a male, he's only getting the Y chromosome from Donald. And so that is what's going on with Jack, right? So Jack, we know, would be normal allele and then the Y chromosome, normal dominant allele and the Y chromosome. Jill, on the other hand, right, Daisy has normal color vision. Daisy has a daughter that's red-green colorblind. Well, Jill could have gotten that red-green colorblind allele from one of them, but it's recessive, right? She could have gotten one from her father. But because it's recessive, she had to get a second one from Daisy. So we know that Daisy is actually heterozygous for this trait. A carrier is what we would call it. She gave one to Jill, and whoever Jill's father is also had to be a colorblind male who could give her that second allele. That's why it's more rare for a female to be colorblind. It's not impossible, but just more rare, because they have to get one from each parent. Whereas a male, if Irma were colorblind, all of her sons would end up being colorblind because that's all she could get. If Irma is heterozygous, half of her sons would end up colorblind. That's, for females, they would both have to provide a recessive allele, and that's just more rare in that regard. Okay. Any questions on color blindness? So because it's sex-linked, we get slightly different patterns of inheritance between males and females, which is the main thing we won't worry about there. Okay. All right. Our last one here is nail patella disorder. And essentially what we find with this one is that nail patella is actually a dominant trait. And sometimes people think, wait, a disease can be dominant? Sure, it can. It just means that it's going to show up when it's a heterozygous trait. So it's not something that's impossible. I think I mentioned last time that polydactyly, having 6 fingers, is dominant. Dwarfism is dominant. So there are unusual conditions or rare conditions which are dominant that are not, they're still dominant even though they're not common, right? So that's kind of an easy trap to fall into. We got to look at the patterns of inheritance again, right? And we look and we see that Donald has the condition, Irma doesn't, Jack doesn't. We have to go through that and think through how would that inheritance pattern work. And so that's autosomal dominant can still be a unusual condition, which we've talked about a number of times now, right? That has nothing to do with how frequent it is in the population. Okay. All right. This nail patella disease, right? If it were found on separate chromosomes from, say, the ABO allele, this is what we'd have to do if it were to produce independent assortment like Mendel said we should, right? So we have, we can have you can end up having B allele or B allele on one chromosome, O allele on the other. Dominant disorder causing allele here, recessive, normal allele here. That when we form the sperm from that individual, right, we have to link all the possible combinations. So we can put the dominants together, we can put the dominant and the recessive together, the recessive and the dominant together, the recessive and the recessive together. We have to do all the possible combinations. Chromosomes contain multiple genes. There isn't just one gene found on each chromosome. So what happens instead if those chromosomes are on the same, those genes are on the same chromosome, and just by chance we have the two dominant alleles get stuck on the same chromosome that you got from one parent, and the two recessive alleles get stuck on a different parent. What we see there is these, that is going to mean when we go to do meiosis, these two always get pulled to the same cell in the division, and these two always get pulled in the same cell in the division. And that's what is called linked genes, okay? The only thing that can break them up is crossing over. And that is something that happens during prophase 1 of the first division. When these homologous pairs get so close to each other, they can exchange portions. So the portion that can change this dominant B allele could swap place with the one that has the O allele on it. And because they swap places, now all of a sudden these B and N, dominant N that should have been inherited together will not be inherited together. Now, crossing over doesn't happen all the time. It's more rare. Most of the time, we're going to have these two dominants if they're on the same chromosome stuck together, these two recessives if they're on the same chromosome stuck together. But when a crossing over event does occur, rather rarely, we can separate those, and that is crossing over, which I talk about more in this lesson here, the meiosis anomalies lesson, and how we come up with those percentages and use them in gene linkage maps.